First of all, I would like to welcome everyone to this roundtable, especially our experts. We will have like roughly 3 minutes, and afterwards the session will be provided on demand. So there are some people who can't participate the whole way, make sure like to afterwards to sign up for it. And we want this format to be as interactive as possible. So there will be a few key questions I will like ask our experts. But nevertheless, there's a chat box, and you're very like happy to use it. Whenever you have a question, just pop it in. I will try to put it into the context wherever it fits. So first of all, I would like to introduce our panelists, and starting with Mark Jekle. Most of you probably know him already as a public speaker on IoT and IoT topics. He's the technical head of IoT at Wolf, with and I checked LinkedIn before, over 20 years of experience actually as a consultant and software architect. So quite a lot. We know him for creating and implementing actually full productive technology stacks, and as well as operational concepts for many, many customers. So Mark, probably when you hear about some latest technical trends, chances are that Mark and his team has already tested them and know about this. So Mark, very happy to have you here.
Thank you for the intro. Happy to be here.
Then next is Diogo Bandao. He's leading the IoT tech team at an international manufacturing company for luxury goods. He has tons of first-hand production experience, and he'll be today our voice of the customer. So I think everything which I found, Diogo's from setting up and scaling up new production lines to introducing very new technologies in OT and IT both, and actually putting DevOps practices into production. And he's probably as well one of the few people here who knows how to sell a story internally in the company and to make things move there. So as well, Diogo, thank you very much for being here and taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Very happy to do so. And last but not least, Peter. I know Peter now for 5 years, I think. He's the CEO and co-founder of Cybus since 2015. Cybus, for those who don't know, is the IoT software company specialized on solutions for large data integration projects in factories, applying industrial DevOps there as well. Peter is an expert in industrial IoT and is, I think, constantly advising and guiding industry leaders towards decentralized factory architectures on scale. And chances are, if you don't see him working, he's probably somewhere sailing in the seas. So, Peter, very happy to have you here as well.
Thanks, Danny.
All right. My name is Daniel Rukowski. I'm leading partnerships at Cybus, and I'll be the moderator for today. And I would like, without further ado, just start right into setting the scene, giving a very short definition about DevOps, because I'm not 100% sure if everyone who's joining here is familiar with the term. Let's go into the next slide and just take a short look. What's DevOps actually? So when talking about DevOps, and that's short for development and operations, it's actually a very known methodology, and it concentrates on collaboration and integration between software developers on one side and IT operations teams on the other side. And both usually have very, very different goals, right? We have IT operations who are responsible for managing and maintenance of IT systems and infrastructure. And on the other hand, we have software developers who are responsible for actually development and implementation of solutions and applications, right? And the goal of DevOps is always to streamline software delivery processes, right? So really to make it as rapidly, frequently, and reliably as possible. And lots of the principles are there around automation, collaboration, using continuous integration pipelines, and now when we extend these principles to manufacturing and apply it basically to manufacturing, we do it in order to be like more responsive to changes and reduce lead times there as well. And that's basically what we want to discuss today, this application of DevOps in factories. It has a lot of different facets. And we are still right now in the market, just to give a broader picture, where we see most factories are not designed to actually scale and manage digital innovations. And we found there are some approaches and principles from this DevOps world which can tremendously help and save a lot of money and time. And yeah, that's it for setting the scene. Yeah. First of all, to all of you, yeah, Peter, Diogo, and Mark, yeah, if you like to conclude anything on this, yeah, be free. What I want to ask you first is at all, why are you using DevOps in the factory? Yeah, and maybe Mark, yeah, maybe you want to start. Yeah.
I think I want to start with maybe extending the term DevOps a bit, because when we talk about DevOps, we often also not just mean that, development operations is done by the same people, and developers can do things on their own in a self-service way and be able to take over responsibility for what they develop and then also operate it. But we also often include in a term using something like GitOps and infrastructure as code principles in order to automate infrastructure, in order to automate other things. So when we think about these terms, we actually think about them in two layers when we, like in the smart factory context. So the first one would be an infrastructure layer. There we use GitOps and infrastructure as code principles for the automation of the lifecycle of the infrastructure itself, like rolling out Kubernetes clusters, updating them, and for the software that gets deployed into these clusters, from things like certain platform services, like for monitoring, alerting, etc., to the use cases themselves. And the second layer where we use these principles actually is what we call the data layer. This is where we, for example, roll out machine connectivity, so connections to industrial machines, do data transformations, to really, define data models for machines, be able to roll them out across multiple plants. And this allows us to very easily scale our solutions to multiple machines inside one plant, but also to multiple plants at the same time. So this is the two, let's say, sectors or layers in which we use DevOps and in which we use GitOps and infrastructure as code principle. And all of these things, so we typically have like a, let's say, platform team that's more responsible for the platform layer that makes sure that everything works fine for the developers to be able then to use this base infrastructure to deploy their use cases, to operate their use cases in a uniform way, no matter if it's in the cloud or if it's on-prem. Diego, did I forget anything important?
I was about to ask. Thanks.
No, I think you covered the right point. So I see something very similar. Also, there is some shared responsibility, right? It's not one team doing everything. So usually you have some kind of DevOps as a service, and you have a toolkit, you have methodology to apply, and then it's how you use them in your industrial setup. But a lot for sure, when we are deploying more and more instances of different software, we need to be able to manage all those instances at scale. Not only their deployment, their upgrades, the configurations, and to do that in the traditional way might be very difficult when you have, I don't know, even when you talk about not that many instances, from 50 to 100 instances of a software. And if you want to do all that manually, it becomes really very complicated. So not only to version everything that you are doing, but also to automate a new upgrade by just changing, the tag or the name of the new version from your remote registry, and everything is done automatically and propagated. I mean, moving from development to production, from one development environment to production environment, to automate that. Automations, as you were saying before, how can you do something manually complex in an automated manner and avoid errors? I mean, the list is quite long, and you also touched around observability, monitoring. So start having the convergence of OT and IT, which also brings more complex architectures with event-driven architectures, multiple brokers. You also have loosely coupled systems, and how to observe all those instances, everything that is happening. You need more powerful tools that allow you to see everything that is happening and detect any issues quickly and understand the root cause also quite fast. So in the end, yeah, this toolkit is quite vast. There is some shared responsibility. Also, the infrastructure part is it might differ. I don't want to go into that topic. I wanted to focus on DevOps, because then we might go into Kubernetes or managing virtual machines, and I think that's not the topic of today. But also, as you are saying rightly, GitOps is oftentimes confused or combined with DevOps, and how do you separate it? But that's super powerful also to have in an industrial setup when you manage multiple applications. So in the end, yeah, quite a lot to say around this topic and how it can help us.
I think one thing that changed in the last years that requires more of this automation and being able to roll this out to more plants than just one, for example, is that, like in the past, often plants were quite independent. They had their OT department that were running their PLCs and stuff and automation, and they were just automating what they had in their plant. But now when we think about things like building a smart factory, and you want to be able to roll out use cases across all of the plants of a company, no matter if it's 3 or if it's 30, then you need to be able to do this in an automated way, to have like a platform that supports all of your plants, that allows you to roll out your use cases very easily to all of your different plants, even if the machines and the settings are quite heterogeneous, which they usually are. And this is maybe something we can also cover later on, like how it is possible to work with this heterogeneity.
Exactly. It's a complex topic to manage indeed.
I would like to add one aspect. For me, the biggest strength in this concept of DevOps is actually best seen in this picture that you have shown, Danny, this infinite loop. Because actually DevOps is not about developing something and then operating it, but it's about developing something, operating it, changing something, operating that, changing something. So it's continuously changing, continuously improving, continuously trying out new things, applying new features, Mark, as you said, use cases, or adding new machines, integrating new IT applications into your smart factory setup. So for me, the strength of DevOps is being able to manage change in a very fast way. And that is what we even see and we experience in our personal life. When is the last time you remember updating an app on your smartphone? Usually you don't do that. A couple of years ago, you had to install updates. You're not doing that anymore. Things are changing constantly. You wake up and your app is a little bit different. A new feature is there. Something changes in the background slightly, incrementally. And that is possible due to the DevOps approach. And I think it's actually a natural thing to apply to factories, because even on the shop floor, the workers at the machine, they have their continuous improvement processes to continuously improve how they produce. What we need to cover now with DevOps is how to extend this continuous improvement to the machinery, to the automation, to the process, to the data handling, but without risking failure, because we cannot afford changing a running system to not work anymore. And I think this is a big strength when we do it right, that we are able to constantly develop our overall smart factory setup without risking downtimes, or that the change would be so harsh that any change would basically cause a production interruption in the end. So that's with the increasing development, increasing technology cycle velocity. This is, I think, the imperative that drives us to applying DevOps to manufacturing.
Yeah,
Also,
and even if you have a breaking change, you are able to roll back if needed.
Exactly.
And you know
Exactly.
the version before that was working, and you have everything under control and managed.
Exactly.
So it's about this risk reducing, right? Which you were like talking about, Peter. So it's not only the change and the speed, right? But you actually want to have like very risk-free, right? Options to move ahead. And I think so Frank, thanks for like keeping this like very organic, this discussion. And I think like everyone is right now like very good aligned in terms of why we're doing DevOps and all the benefits. Still, just to challenge this a little bit, and that's something we discussed before as well, before going live. We don't see DevOps in every factory, yeah, and why is it? Why don't we see DevOps actually in every company being used? Yeah.
Maybe I'll start again. I think it depends on where you look at the company. So in IT and digitalization departments, DevOps principles are quite common these days, but less so on the OT side or on production IT side. And I think this is related to where the OT side comes from. Often you also don't have like software engineers that are working cloud native or building cloud native systems on the OT side. Traditional OT products don't support these approaches. They often don't even have an API. You can't really automate them. You can't monitor them properly. And also my impression is that often the focus on OT is so much on solving problems that they don't care as much for things like automating IT infrastructure and so on. So they just try to, fix their individual problems. But this doesn't work anymore that well if you have to scale this, across all of your plans and to apply changes continuously. You can't have someone walking around with an USB stick anymore, applying those changes if you want to get into this continuous improvement.
Yeah, I would like to pick on something that you said, Mark, which is where the OT comes from, right? I mean, OT people OT engineers have been managing factories for a long time, right? And things have been running and have been operating. And that brings also relationships with many vendors, legacy systems vendors, where they can be SCADA systems, they can be historians, which sometimes come in a combined manner, connectivity tools, and usually they have a quite long relationship with those vendors. And as you usually see, any SCADA vendor, or most of them, will tell them that now they have their SCADA is an IoT platform. But that the technology that is under the hood is already quite legacy, and it's not ready to be migrated to this kind of new world, whether it's cloud or even, as you were rightly saying, compatible with DevOps approaches or GitOps approaches. And actually, it's very difficult to get out of that bubble for OT people, because it's a different world. They don't want to risk what is already working. So it's really not easy without a big stimulus, whether from an IT company or from an IT department, or even new needs for hyperconvergence or more convergence between IT and OT to answer data availability and as we said, development cycle, which is increasing for new use cases and new needs. Without that big stimulus, it's difficult to move away from that. And we know it's challenging. And if you look at how things are implemented, if you follow the Purdue model that is usually implemented in most factory setups, you talk to any security company, consulting company, they will always tell you to follow 100% the Purdue model. Don't take any risks. This is what works. But then implementing the DevOps approach, having the constraints of a Purdue model, it's not easy. You need to find the right answers to do so. And it's not easy to find literature or also people that will advise you to do it in the right way. So it's a lot of research and finding the right partners that will be key in being able to do that step, I would say.
Diogo, could you briefly describe what the Purdue model is for the audience?
Yeah, the Purdue model is actually a way that allows you to have different layers in your kind of network architecture that will isolate every layer one from another, which allows for production equipment to be really in an isolated way and not directly communicating with the internet, so that you avoid any exposure to any attacks. And usually you have this multi-layer approach where you have at the bottom your sensors, then you have actually the layer above usually your PLCs, then in layer 2 you have your SCADA system, layer 3 you might have your historian, and then you have some debate whether you put a historian now on layer 3 or layer 4, and MES solutions as well, even SCADA solutions. And then you usually have then a big separation between what is the factory world and the IT world, with the DMZ in between, that will allow you to have kind of this, tampon, I don't know how to say in English, this kind of buffer that will isolate really the OT world or the local environment, industrial world, from the IT world. And traditionally, the communication between these layers had to go through each layer, in this logical sequence. But we see that already for quite some time, you are making bridges between those layers in different ways, and that the model itself is not ready, or is very difficult to implement in the new context that we're living in, where the convergence of IT and OT is increasing quite a lot. So new answers are needed to that, I think, and there are smart ways of implementing also the Purdue model using the cloud. But the problem is that you don't have a lot of people that will be able to tell you how to do it and to advise you how to do it. But I think you can still use it as a really good reference, but some adaptation are required for the new constraints that we have, and also to allow the more modern approaches of managing the life cycle of software and applications in general.
I feel a very strong urge to talk about the unified namespace, but I'll keep that to myself.
That's the second webinar, I would say.
That's a different topic.
Yeah, we can make a series from this. So I would add one other aspect why we don't see DevOps in every company yet. I think it's also partly a chicken egg problem, because many industrial companies, especially when you really look into the factory, they still struggle with digitization as a whole. Yeah, I'm still surprised how often I find myself in a conversation with somebody who says, "Let's see if this data really can provide value." So there's still not complete trust that digitization actually is a benefit financially, and everybody has a gut feeling, that they should digitize, and it's pretty clear, but most people I meet have a hard time really calculating a business case and so on. And when you're not convinced about your use cases yet, taking this leap of faith and saying, okay, let's change the way we work, let's revolutionize and really transform fundamentally the collaboration between OT and IT and how our IT infrastructure works and so on, is a hard thing. And so the question is, do you first have to trust your use cases, or do you first have to make the change organizationally and technically, and then the use cases will develop? I think this chicken egg kind of problem is also preventing companies to actually move and to take the investment. Do you agree, Diogo and Mark?
Well, we try to do both together. So when we build such platforms, smart factory platforms, we usually advise our customers to only do this together with specific use cases already that provide some value. So and not just build a platform for itself just because it's good having one, and then OT will come or somebody else will come and use it. I don't think this is working. So you really need initial use cases that you want to start with, maybe even have a longer term plan, which use cases you want to implement, and really define this business value already in the beginning, and then build up such a platform along with the use cases, and just start small and then iterate, apply.
But each individual use case works well without DevOps, right?
That's actually another thing that happened in the past. Like the people were building a lot of siloed applications. Putting this one application in a VM, that's not an issue, and then you need the other VM for the next solution, and so on. And then you have like a huge variety of differently working VMs and applications, and in the end, you're only busy with keeping that up and running instead of innovating. I think that's actually a big problem, to have these siloed approaches. The German word would translate to island solutions that only always cover like an individual use case.
I think it also depends a lot on the use cases, right? Because a use case might be globally applicable to across multiple factories, or might be very local, right? So if it's a global one, I think you need to consider DevOps to manage it from the start, or at least to find the right mechanisms to manage it properly. If it's a local one, of course, you can just go very quickly with the POC or an MVP. And then, of course, usually you have some technical debt, which you need to, overcome to put it in production or to be able to scale it. That's oftentimes what happens. In my context and from my experience, I never had to really justify the need to digitalize, because there is already some awareness of the importance of it and the willingness to do so. So that has not been a real issue. The issue is usually because I've been working more in central teams, which are actually providing a service. It can be an IoT product that supports many needs. Usually our struggle is more having the customer of our platform to actually provide that ROI to us, so it's always difficult to have those values, to ask for that, and at the same time to make all those tools available and to support and have the budget for that. Even though many times it's quite easy to quantify the benefit, but that's usually a challenge that we face. And also, you need to answer the needs of today of a use case, but you also need somehow to anticipate what is coming, because sometimes the business doesn't realize yet the issues that they will face in 1, 2, 3 years from now, how to manage that, how to ensure security of what they are doing, how to manage the secrets of the development that they do. So all that we need to anticipate. And, the modeling part, no one usually cares about modeling the data when they start the use case, just throw in everything you have. But then you actually want to make sense of the data, and well, good luck. You need to think a lot. So we need to answer the needs of today, create value, but at the same time, we need to anticipate what's coming and create a solid foundation so that we are ready for the future, and we don't need to refactor everything that comes with a huge technical debt from all those diverse and different use cases that were not properly developed or handled.
Fully agree. Yeah. First of all, we need to solve OT problems. Like, that's
the real problem.
But in a way that is sustainable and can scale, that will support all of your use cases, and that you don't have to build a different solution when somebody, let's say, comes around and wants to do visual inspection or some other machine learning use case, and then okay, then we have to build something else for this. So like these things, such a platform solution needs to anticipate and already needs to factor in, or you should be able to extend it to support these use cases.
Yeah.
So, quick question. We now talked a lot about basically why is it so hard, right? And from basically the chicken egg problem, over the Purdue model and everything. If you're thinking about like those cases which you had all in the past, which worked very well, and I heard some already, Mark, saying we try to put in the platform together with the use case approach and do it together, or we need to start with OT first, solving those problems. What are key factors you would say in your past projects which worked very well, for actually moving digitization forward, and having this value-based approach? Is there something you would like to share? Because we have a bigger audience right now, and I'm sure there's something they can take away in terms of what worked very well in the past. Now, Peter, you can maybe start as well, like especially when we were talking about this facilitating this industrial DevOps approach, in the factories. How are you doing this?
I mean, the first thing that's always important is that if you ask me, smart factory is not a technology problem, and that's what we all often confuse, because we talk about containers and Kubernetes and all these IT terms, and I'm an engineer myself, and I think there are so many engineers around in this Industry 4.0 sphere that everybody confuses this to be a technology problem, but the technology is already there. There's everything works. It's super easy to connect the machine to the cloud. We have all this AI, we have security encryption, we have Git, we have automation. Everything is there and it's proven already. I would say the worldwide banking system, health insurances, Netflix. This is the same technology. I think the first thing that all best-in-class examples have in common is that the organizational transformation has taken place, and we see that the customers that really adopt smart factory principles, that we even see that in the titles of the involved persons. We have product owners suddenly in the shop floor. This is for me an indicator that this thinking starts to happen. We have a collaboration set up between OT and IT, and it's a true collaboration that is required to happen. IT must not be the enemy anymore, and this is in many companies a case. Oh no, let's not involve IT. That just takes long, because they don't open the firewall and they have concerns. IT has to be seen as and behave as a facilitator to actually support the use cases. And I think this organizational transformation that's a leadership task in the first place. So it's a strong CIO or a strong COO that has to incorporate this organizational transformation first. And that's, I think, how I would start this to answer this question. Diogo, you just wanted to jump in, right?
Well, I fully agree with what you're saying. I think we're also moving a bit on how to sell this within your own company, right? I like a lot. I find it very funny that it's really IT is the enemy usually, right? Or IT never does what we ask for. It takes a long time. That's a really difficult barrier to break, because I'm in IT and I'm now trying to support OT, and I really felt that in the beginning that actually people don't even believe that we will help them. So you need to bring stuff that are really working, that they start slowly to gain more trust. And I think that's for sure something that prevents also the adoptions of these kind of tools and practices in the OT environment. And I fully agree that there is a big need for a good CIO or CTO that is able to push for that, so that there is a really collaborative environment to make things happen. Because people usually don't see the benefit when they are everything is working on my shop, on my factory. So why should I now go through all this risk and effort to change? And I think the key there is, first of all, surround yourself by the good partners. So do a good benchmarking on the market, who is actually doing things with a more modern approach in mind. So those suppliers, when they come into your company. They will also bring a new perspective. So it's really important to be able to, step out of your box and try to talk to people, go to the communities. There are amazing Discord channels these days where everyone is talking about this was not available 5 years or 10 years ago. So those communities are super powerful to showcase what is available and to understand which partner you should work with. And, you have, people like Mark that are also working in this, in setting up DevOps or hybrid cloud environments in industrial setups. So you have partners that can help you doing that as well, but you don't need to start from zero and just try to be the hero. So you can have actually people that help you doing so. And then you can start progressively, right? There are things that are less intrusive that you can start applying. If you talk about Git, about versioning things, about getting into that, even if you use Node-RED has a palette or a plugin that allows you to do Git commits, right? So that's also coming to a lot of tools. So it's slowly becoming more adopted by the new solutions that we'll be all working with. So we can start with monitoring as well, which is less intrusive and allow you to already understand a lot of what's happening. Even some automations. Why not implementing some automations for tasks that you need to go through 100 VMs to understand or to push some configuration or to update something. And those things are less intrusive and allows in a controlled manner to bring IT practices into the OT environment and to start showing the value and start being familiar with what's happening. So that's a way that can make it easier to start with DevOps without going into the selling part in your company yet, being more pragmatic, I would say.
But I think you have a very good point out here. You have to build solutions, platforms, whatever, that makes life actually easier for people than before and not more complex or more bureaucratic. So it should be easier than ever to deploy something, to build something, to maybe request access to certain data. For example, we see it at some companies. It's like if you want to access data in some, let's say, Kafka topic or MQTT topic, might take weeks of bureaucracy. And in others, you can just, request access in your data catalog, and then other person grants it, and then you have access and you can do something with the data. So these these automated systems, so they have to get out of your way. You have to be able, the people using them have to be able to do as much as possible by themselves, and do the things quickly without having to talk to IT and open a ticket to do this and that, and then everything takes long. So really have to essentially enable the users of those platforms to do as much as possible by themselves and as quickly as possible to solve the problems they have more quickly than before.
And give the hand along the way, right? I mean, you put the service available, but you need to train them, to educate, to be there on a weekly basis to support. That's usually what I try to do in every team is how can we have one person almost dedicated to support the business that is using those tools and getting acquainted to those tools, and have continuously someone to talk to on a regular basis to troubleshoot and to adopt the good practices as well when they are developing something.
Yeah, we also, maybe to add to this, what we also like to do is to really onboard customer developers or OT people into our teams so they can work with our more experienced developers and then learn from them and gradually take over what we started building. So we help them over this, with this initial big step, and then we integrate them in our teams and at some point, so they can take over at some point and do everything themselves. So this is also something that can prove quite helpful.
The moment you train a champion or an ambassador within an OT team, that's a big part of the problem that is solved, or the challenge, right? Things will start going on their own.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for really putting all this together. I tried to summarize a lot of those points, and there are many. I can share them afterwards if you like. Yeah, starting from organizational to collaboration setups to now having basically and a champion in the OT space. Yeah, for having good CAO, CTO who is embarking actually, on this collaboration environment. Yeah, so lots of very valuable insights. Thank you. And I just want to take a look on the time. We have 5 minutes left. Yeah, and to all the audience, yeah, feel free to share questions as well. I just want to share one first here, which just came up, which is Diogo mentioned a very important point, training. What will be good strategies to improve and more easily integrate new systems for users that are used to running legacy systems? Is this somehow possible to automate and scale such processes?
To improve and more easily integrate. Yeah. Well, it's a challenging one. I don't know if automating will be easy to do to start with. I think that, yeah, I really think that bringing more and more IT people to the shop floor and creating the better communication between OT and the IT will be really important to understand what can be done for legacy systems. I think each legacy system is a bit particular on its own, so you don't have one unique approach to manage because they are all different. We have a specific case, for instance, for in the past I was using and still using Kepware, for instance, and you want to manage it in a better way. So for Kepware, for instance, there is an API, so you can call the API to get the status on what's happening, to get the logs as well. It's not something you can do natively. To deploy upgrades or to manage the configuration, it's something that you also need to automate on your own. And I think each legacy system is a legacy system, and I think you need for each one of those a different solution. And you can, for most of them or for many of those different areas, you can automate it. But the software vendor won't help you in telling you how to do it. They will just tell you that maybe buy, another tool that will do that for you, and they don't help that much to solve those problems. That's my experience so far. So you need to partner with more IT people to understand how to automate and how to build those automations yourself and how to train people to do it. So I don't know if I'm answering or if I understood fully the question, but that's a bit my recommendation there.
Maybe to add on the trainings, I mean, individual trainings are fine and nice and they help you understand the stuff initially, but I think it's really important to do things together in the beginning, like actually, connect machines, define data transformations, and really do this together so people learn on the job essentially. At least, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I learn much more when I actually do the stuff than when I go to a training and then I forget 80% after a week.
Yeah. And the good thing is that there is so much documentation around DevOps or online, and it's really well documented and used that besides doing it and practicing it yourself, whatever you need, you can find online. Most of the cases or the support is available. So yeah, that's a bit what we do.
All right, maybe with a look on the time, yeah. There are many more questions. I just put in one last, and please keep it short, yeah. But I didn't want to spare it because it was very interesting, yeah. Essentially, the question was: can OT effectively implement DevOps without IT being on board? Yeah. You can tackle just real quick, yeah.
I've actually a good example to share that at one current customer of us, where actually the operations organization is driving the smart factory, and because they see they need the data in order to meet the quality requirements, in order to meet the reduced scrap rates they are being asked for, in order to meet the energy, the carbon footprint reporting requirements that they need to comply with, and so many more. So OT, so operations, see so many requirements for data that they say we need a solid and in some way agile platform where we can actually work with data, because we know within 1 year there will be so many new requirements that we need to comply with. And so OT asked IT to provide, in this case, to provide the DevOps platform and the data platform to actually be able to fulfill the requirements they see. I don't think that OT should do it without IT, because there are certain things IT is designed for, running systems, managing updates, maintaining cybersecurity, governance, and IT is per definition a shared service organization supporting internal customers. So I think it should be a collaboration, but the driver can be in OT, and I see this happening at the first customers. That's my take on this.
Yeah, fully agree with that.
Mark, if you like to as well add on that, because if not, I will close this round for today, but I want to give you the chance as well.
Maybe just one thing. Sometimes we see that actually companies have like a digitalization department or other company that actually helps the OT side and not like the traditional IT department, because they might not have the knowledge or the resources to do so. So like quite a few companies found their, digitalization subsidiaries that then, help the company to digitalize different aspects of their companies.
Well, thank you. Then with the look on the time, it's we are 2 minutes over. So I would like to thank you very much for taking the time, the whole 45 minutes, as well for the very great questions coming from the audience. Sorry for everyone who I couldn't moderate the questions in. There were even more questions. Maybe we should consider doing a part 2. Let us know. Also, feel free to connect with each of our experts, Peter, Mark, and Diogo on LinkedIn and co. If you have direct questions to them, I just want to say thank you very much. For taking the time, for the good discussion. I think it was very valuable, for a lot of insights as well for me. So thanks for being here and taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thanks, Danny.